Hard to say for sure. I'm guessing that I have a leak in my rear axle gasket. I'm going to clean this really well with some Dawn or some Super Clean and make sure it's not just residual oil from when I had to replace the tube on the axle vent, because it was leaking quite a bit of oil all over the place. So this is possibly just residual oil. So I'm gonna make sure I get this thoroughly cleaned and drive it for a week or so and see if I have more oil or not. So we're cleaned up now, degreased, whatever you want to say. And you see I went ahead and I did a new fuel hose there for the vent tube. Basically, so it's a longer hose now, and then what I did is I took 3 zip ties, put one around the hose on each side, and then I attached them in the middle with a zip tie to kind of create that loop. So that should be closer to the factory design. And so we've got our baseline now of clean rear axle, so I will know if there's any leaks in a week or so. Hello YouTube, W&J's Handy Dad here. We are laying underneath the Crown Victoria Police Interceptor, and as I feared, it appears I have a leak on my rear axle cover. It's a pretty minor leak. It's actually still full of fluid, so it's not really been a problem. However, I'm under here. I have a new gasket, so I may as well change it. Now, these are 1/2-inch bolts, and I did have concerns. That one right there appears to be kind of rounded off, so I'm going to try to remove that one first, even though normally you want to start at the bottom and work your way up in a back and forth pattern. But if I can't get that one off, then there's no point in trying to remove any of the others, because I don't want to get stuck and then have to put more of a band-aid on this. So the first step is to remove the fill plug and make sure that, obviously, that if you can't get that off, then there's no point in even trying this. Well, or you'd have to do some sort of workaround, like drilling a hole in the cover and doing all that, which is not ideal. So pretty certain that the fill plug will come off because we removed it in a prior video, no problem. There is your fill plug. It just takes a 3/8 inch socket extension to remove it. So you just get your socket wrench in there, set it on loosen, and then crank it a few times. You want to have your drain pan under here just in case, if you're not on a perfectly level surface, or even if you are, you may get fluid coming out of there when you open that up. Alright, I've got all the bolts out except the top one is just loosened a few turns, and the fluid has not come out yet. You want to get your pan ready to go, because when it comes out all at once. There's not any drain hole or anything. There you have it. We're done.
It must really be on.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh.
And there we go. There we go.
Oh my god.
Alright, got the cover off. Leaving the drain pan under it because it's still going to keep dripping fluid. You want to be careful with this surface here. You don't want to scratch it with anything metallic, and you don't want to spray brake cleaner or anything inside of there. So wipe it down with a lint-free paper towel, shop towel, and use a plastic scraper to scrape any gasket that's remaining, and then put brake clean on a towel and wipe down the outer surface. So here's my cover, and you see whoever did it last, they just did a really poor job of putting RTV around it. In fact, they did 2 beads. I really should have done a bead along here. You can tell this didn't even mate since it's so misshapen. They really did a poor job of that. And then I don't know why they did the second bead on the outside. That was no purpose served by that. So I'm going to clean all this out, and you can use brake clean to clean this. I'm going to scrape this off, preferably with plastic. If it won't come off, I may have to get a metal scraper, but I'm going to try to avoid that. And then this side, I'm going to clean this, get all this rust off, and paint it. So the first part is just wiping it clean and all this oil out of here. You can tell this was leaking quite a bit the way they did this, especially right there. I bet it was coming out, and that's why there's so much axle fluid on all of here. This is all axle fluid here, it looks like. If you were going to use RTV to make your gasket, this is what you want. You want the gear oil gasket maker. And what you would do is put about a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch bead, and you want to go consistently all the way around here in one pass. So in other words, don't do a strip and a strip and a strip. So you go all the way around, and then after you've linked it together, then you want it to sit and dry for 5 to 15 minutes before you put it on the car. And then when you're putting it on the car, you're not going to torque the bolts down right away. You're going to put the bolts in one at a time, turn them a couple turns, let it sit for a few minutes, turn them a couple turns, let it sit for a few minutes. Basically, you're wanting the gasket to slowly dry and compress rather than just squishing it on. After it's dried for approximately 30 minutes to an hour is when you can torque them down all the way. And then it says if you're using RTV not to fill it up with oil for at least an hour. So doing this is obviously what you do if you can't find the gasket, because while there's some convenience to just putting this on and going, the downside is all the wait time. Whereas if you just put a gasket on, you just bolt it on, fill it up, and go. Alright, W and I have been cleaning this, and no, it's not perfect, but it's much better than it was. I'm going to hit it with some caliper paint and see. I would have preferred to have this thing totally down to the steel and all that, but I'm running out of time, and I gotta get this back together so I can drive it. So we'll see what this looks like. So while that may not be perfect, it should at least keep it from rusting anymore. So I'm going with the actual gasket. I did the Fel Pro. It's the RDS 55341. Alright, you want to torque them down kind of like you do a tire. You want to go in a crisscross pattern. If you start at the top, do the top, then the bottom, then go one side, then the other side, back and forth. Torque setting for the newer year models, I'll try to see if there's a difference, but 33 foot-pounds. You got 10 bolts, so make sure that you have a way to keep track of which ones you've done. After you've done them all, you may want to go back around in a circle and just make sure that they're all tightened. So this time I'm using the Mobil One. Police vehicles all seem to call for 75 W140. The civilian models call for the lighter grade. So I'm sticking with this. You'll notice this comes with the limited slip friction modifier, so I don't have to add a separate one. If you found an oil that didn't and you had a traction lock, then you need to put your limited slip modifier in first and then fill it up with oil. So if you're using an oil that does not have limited slip in it and you have a traction lock, then you need to put 4 ounces of something like this in first. So the fill up procedure is remove the fill plug, have your drain pan ready, because once it fills up it'll start running out. You just pour it in. It'll probably take between 2 and 3 quarts. These bottles are nice because they fit perfectly up here to fill with. If you don't buy these bottles, then you gotta get a pump and pump it all in here.